just over 48 hours ago, a child died in my arms. He was a very wonderful little boy. I told them all, and the next day this child's parents, who live in extreme poverty, had to be told as well, so I went to tell them. And every single person that I told, they all did the same thing. All of them collapsed in tears. This single mothers with special needs children see their own child in him and their worst fear come true. And they wept, and the parents wept, and his siblings wept. But in amongst the weeping of every person I heard the same word. Yesu. And Yesu is Kiswahili for Jesus. And every person called to Yesu for comfort. That comfort that we draw from God and that we hope to find in the dark hours came in the form of Yesu, or Jesus, for all those who mourned. And because of that, the image of Jesus Christ should be celebrated, because of the strength it brings to people and the comfort it brings to people. Whether you take it literal or non-literal, or mystical or esoteric, it doesn't matter. What matters is it can be used in a loving and positive way. And it should be celebrated. Hey guys, so it's Easter and it's celebrated a great deal here in Tanzania and all over the world, of course, but here it is a very big holiday. And of course we all know it's celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But well, strictly speaking, the holiday Easter is not. Easter's not in the Christian scriptures at all, the word. It originates, well, that's another video altogether, but originates from the word Ishtar, which is a very different celebration altogether, and not one of much moral standing in the realms of Christianity. So it's unusual that we use that word, but this is what it no longer represents that anyway. We know that it represents the resurrection of our Jesus Christ. Now, I've made videos before about how Easter is tying in exactly with the spring equinox. This is why there's a false tradition on the planet of eating lamb, because they believe there should be a burnt offering. But as I've explained before, actually the sun in the sky at that point, Aries, the constellation, passes into the sun at the spring equinox. This is the burnt offering. This is, as it says, the first page of the Bible, let the stars be for signs. This is the burnt offering. You know, the stars are the signs, and the burnt offering is the lamb, Aries, the lamb passes into the sun and is burnt up by the sun in the sky. So there's no need to kill a baby animal and eat it, just because of a religious holiday, because it had nothing to do with that. And God told you this in the Bible, if you're a Christian. He told you that he took no pleasure in your blood sacrifices and so on and so forth, and said stop. So eating other beings on certain holidays is ultimately disobeying what he asked. Stop these blood sacrifices in the name of tradition, religion. But what I want to talk about is, many of you know I speak in terms that upset many Christians, sadly, on the planet, because they're not open to other ways of following Christ. I still follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, and I still live by those teachings daily. I also live by the teachings of other spiritual teachers on the planet, but Jesus Christ's teachings are at the forefront of what I do every day. I live in service of others. I did so only because I fasted and altered my perception, my being, my heart. And I gave everything I had to the poor and came here to serve, just as was instructed by the teachings of Christ. And I believe in sharing, hence the name of our charity, Share Tanzania, just as Jesus Christ instructed you should do. So, where I come up against the wall is, people don't understand what I'm getting at when I say I couldn't take the Bible just to be literal, because I'd read books beyond the Bible, and my heart is in a different place to this idea. Now, for instance, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ for our sins, I always had a lot of trouble with. I always said, why it was the only way that a loving God could think to forgive the sins of humanity is to torture his own son. It's a very strange way to choose to forgive, but at the same time, I suppose it's a very powerful show as well, and something that has lived on, a story that has lived on. But also I've studied the stars as is instructed by the Bible, and as is instructed by the presence of such things as the Magi, who were astrologers from Persia at the birth of Christ. And of course I'm well aware that the sun passes through the crucifix and then is in the tomb for 3 days, so there's a relationship between the life of Christ and the sun in the sky. It doesn't take away anything from the literal story of Christ. It might simply mean that the brightest light in the sky manifests as the life of one of the brightest, or the brightest human being on earth. But the crucifixion, there are other books that were left out of the Bible, and in one such gospel, I forget which disciple walks away from the crucifixion in a state of misery and mourning. And as he does, he meets Jesus Christ. And he says, "But Lord, you're crucified." And he said, "No, I'm not crucified. They just think I am." And this made me realize that perhaps the story is not so much 100% literal, or perhaps indeed God was not, the only way God could find to forgive us was to torture his own son, might not have been the case. But many Christians will still shoot me down for that and say, "How dare you say that?" But yet I still live as Jesus Christ asked me to. I still love him and adore his teachings. So just don't mistake me, because my end goal is to follow and to love Christ. And just because the details that lead me to that end goal differ from yours, just because my mind works in another way, you shouldn't condemn each other. I wouldn't condemn someone for believing different to I. You shouldn't do that. Look at the results of a person's life. If I can follow Christ and tell everyone that they should definitely follow what he said and live a life of service as he asked, but I just can't agree on certain details, then I shouldn't be condemned by others who follow the same teachings, is how I feel. It's not part of my nature to do that to other people. However, what I do want to make clear to everybody is that the literal story of Christ plays a huge role in many persons' lives. And what I want to say is, for Easter, I don't mind celebrating the image of Jesus Christ in the least bit. In the least. Because it brings such hope and such love to so many people's lives. How can the literal story not be praised and enjoyed and celebrated? Just over 48 hours ago, a child died in my arms. He was a very wonderful little boy. There's a very bright light on this planet. He was a special needs child, but just because he couldn't express himself in the normal way meant he could express himself in ways you or I can't, with a love and light that you and I can't, or struggle to. I often see it with our special needs children here at the children's village that whereas we work hard to gain control of our five senses and our desires, the legwork is cut out for them because their bodies don't allow them to embrace these things or to experience them, or the lives they've lived to even know to desire them. And thus that puts them in a much more advanced state mentally and spiritually than most of us. Their egos are nearly non-existent. They're there. You still get little bullies and stuff like this. But they don't have as much of a job to do. And because of that, they can come through in spirit in a much stronger way, is how I feel. Now, when he died, I prayed to God to take him safely to wherever his final destination was. Whatever heaven looks like to a child, I don't know, but I prayed that God would take him there and make sure that he knew that he was loved and missed by us all. But when I came home, I then had the job of telling all of these single mothers with special needs children who live here that this little boy that they had been caring for had died. Not only that, but before I'd gotten a car that works to get him to hospital for the first time ever, 2 of our cars failed to start. Doesn't happen, never happened. They both failed to start. And the guys here say that Satan got in between myself and saving the life of this child, because perhaps he would have lived if I got to the hospital faster. Who knows? I know for 2 cars not to start, I can't explain it. I just can't. So I told them all, and the next day this child's parents, who live in extreme poverty, had to be told as well, so I went to tell them. And every single person that I told, they all did the same thing. All of them collapsed in tears. This single mothers with special needs children see their own child in him and their worst fear come true. And they wept, and the parents wept, and his siblings wept. But in amongst the weeping of every person, I heard the same word. Yesu. And Yesu is Kiswahili for Jesus. And every person called to Yesu for comfort. That comfort that we draw from God and that we hope to find in the dark hours came in the form of Yesu, or Jesus, for all those who mourned. And because of that, the image of Jesus Christ should be celebrated because of the strength it brings to people and the comfort it brings to people. Whether you take it literal or non-literal, or mystical or esoteric, it doesn't matter. What matters is it can be used in a loving and positive way. And it should be celebrated because it brings a lot of love and comfort to this world. And if someone is following his teachings but can't put their head around the literal side of it, have tolerance. There's enough divide in the world without people disagreeing over how to follow somebody, how to follow instructions. As long as the end results are right. If someone leaves instructions on how to fix a car and someone else leaves a separate way to do it, and both people fix the car and it's fine, is there any point in arguing over which set of instructions were correct? And so for the power and strength I see the image of Jesus bring the people around me. For all I never call on Jesus, I only call to God. But others do. And I respect it. And I love it. And I admire it. And something that powerful, that nurturing internally within humankind should be celebrated. And that is how I will view Easter. For all there is a non-literal and a literal means to it, and I lean more towards the non-literal. I would never condemn the literal, because I see the beauty in it, and I see the benefits in it. I see the glory in it. So for all we are mourning, here at Feathersdale, happy Easter everybody, and I hope you embrace the holiday in your own way for what it is to you. For it is all that energy that we call love and comfort and nurturing and hope and promise and forgiveness and love and sharing and service. It's that which I celebrate. Whatever label you give it, I really don't care. As long as that energy is what's celebrated, then that's what matters in my heart. Okay. God bless. Bye.
God has chosen you to sit amongst the angels and the saints until the day we join you once again. Gentle soul, loving brother, silent strength, loving son, on your shoulders I will rest all my fears. Gentle soul, loving brother, silent strength, loving son, on your shoulders I will cry all my tears. On your shoulders